Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is Pete Wormter again from QuandaGo. Why don't we go ahead and get started? I'd like to welcome Boggs Abigado, the co-founder and managing director of Tritel Global, to just offer a quick welcome. Boggs? And just a reminder to unmute yourself, Boggs.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
We can hear you.
You can hear me, Pete?
Yes, we can. Welcome, sir.
All right. So, good day, everyone. And thank you, dear business partners, for joining us today. This is the very first interactive webinar we have organized, and we are very happy to share that we have so many of our business partners, old and new, in this session. So we thank each and everyone who have spared precious minutes of their time to be with us here. I believe most of us are in Manila, except for our three speakers from QuandaGo and VANAD. Our friend Pete is in Paris. Steffi is in Rotterdam, I believe, and Robert is in California. So this, my friends, is truly a global event. And so to them, we say good morning. And to the rest of us, good afternoon. Anyway, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Boggs Abogado, and I represent the management team of Tritel Global. I am pleased to note that some of our leadership teams are here also with Mr. Bomolina, Ricky de San Jose, and our CEO, Kirby Koo, is here also. We are very excited with the partnership of Tritel Global and QuandaGo, as this will expand the portfolio of our company to include new omnichannel contact center and process automation cloud services. And with this partnership, this allows Tritel to be an official reseller of QuandaGo's cloud-based customer experience solutions in the Philippine market. We also would like to thank our invited speakers for this afternoon session and for lending their expertise and experiences to us as they share their insights, experiences, and applicable tools on home agents engagement. We have Ms. Steffi Brodkorb from VANAD Engage, Pete Wormter, and Robert Winder, both from QuandaGo. One might ask, why are we having this webinar in the midst of a global pandemic, where business expansions are being reconsidered, capital expenditures are recalibrated, and cost cutting is the name of the game? And our response is, why not? It is during uncertain times that we should do certain things. And as one personal hero of mine once said, we should not be petrified by inaction. To put things in proper perspective, I would like to share with you, dear partners, one particular episode in this TV series, The Flash. I hope you're familiar with The Flash, Wonder Woman, Superman, The Flash. And in one of the episodes, Professor Stein, I hope you're familiar also with this character, was telling Team Flash that whenever he reaches a certain point where he doesn't know what to do because of the situation or circumstance he is currently in, he is always reminded and guided by the Hebrew word kadima, which means forward. And relating this to our present situation in the country, where we are beset with lockdowns, curfews, social distancing, liquor bans, and telecommuting, the best way to cope, my dear partners, is to move forward and eventually thrive. And through this webinar, we hope that we will be able to contribute in our own small way to this endeavor. Again, in behalf of the management team of Tritel Global and our partners from VANAD and QuandaGo, we are very thankful and grateful for your participation in this interactive webinar on home agent engagement. So I would like to turn you now over to Pete. Pete, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Boggs. Appreciate that. And I'd like to also personally welcome all of you to today's session. Again, as Boggs mentioned, this is Pete Wormter. I look after marketing at QuandaGo. I will be your moderator today. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about what we'll cover in today's session. As Boggs mentioned, we are living in unprecedented times that started back in March, and at QuandaGo, we've been working very closely with our customers, and Steffi will share her experiences around this, but helping them transition to a remote operation and adapting to all the challenges that that presents from an operational perspective, keeping agents motivated, engaged, and so forth. And these were really challenges that the industry had never faced before, and it was a time when even, I think, call center agents were being looked at as essential workers during the lockdowns and so forth. So here we are 6 months later, and I think we're all still very much living with this. For some of us in other parts of the world, heading into the winter months, which there are, of course, concerns of the virus's return. So we expect things to continue. We will continue to work with our customers and partners to help our end customers manage effectively through this. Fortunately, we have solutions and expertise to do that. And that's what we're going to talk to you about today. I want to, so it's home agent engagement, and really not only setting up your operation to enable this, but then, you know, what does this new workforce look like? What are some of the new practices you need in place to manage a newly remote workforce? So we'll bring up Robert from QuandaGo. He'll talk a bit on best practices, everything from building trust to some of the technology aspects to consider in a home agent operation. And then, as we mentioned, Steffi from VANAD Engage. VANAD is one of Europe's largest BPOs based here in the Netherlands, really with world-class customers, Volkswagen and brands, global type brands. So Steffi has a great story to tell in how they managed the transition back in the spring and how they continue to work today. We will have time for questions at the end. So you can submit those either via the chat session throughout the webinar, and I'll monitor that. And then I'll open it up formally at the end where you can verbally ask a question as well. So we'll have some time for questions. Having said that, let's jump in. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Robert Winder, who's going to talk a little bit on the engagement side from best practices. Robert, just a reminder, I will drive the slides for you, so just give me the cues when you're ready to move on. Welcome.
Thanks very much, Pete, and thanks to everybody. I'm looking forward to today's webinar, and hopefully you are too. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I've been in the contact center space since 1991, when I first stepped foot on the contact center floor of the very first call center bank in the UK called First Direct. I joined that company realizing that the contact center was the future, I think, for most enterprises, and since 91, so we have actually seen that happen. In a little over 5 years, having been there for quite some time, I left to join Genesis in the early mid 90s. And in 2001, almost 10 years after I joined my first contact center, we really started to focus a lot on the role of IP and what IP would bring to the contact center space. And if we fast forward yet another decade, it's amazing how time has flown. Now we realize the value of that transition that we have undergone over the last decade towards IP, because IP is really the enabler for what we're discussing today with home agents. Now, more on the technology later. What I'd like to talk to you about is how I have seen the contact center morph over the last 30 years from heavily structured with agents working in very tight groups to today very distributed agent groups where we have agents who are spread not only distributed across large campus centers, but also distributed across large cities. And as we saw from the headlines that Pete had on his previous slide, the requirement for those agents to be distributed is getting ever more a top priority for most organizations. So Pete, let's move on to the next slide. Today I'm going to cover off 3 specific pieces as we think about how we engage home agents. The first is to discuss how we should manage our people. Really, as I mentioned, we're going to see a change in the traditional models that we used for contact center management, and that will inevitably impact you as contact center leaders, but also your customers and your agents. So we're going to talk a little bit about the different opportunities there are to introduce some new tactics when it comes to working with your teams and building your teams. The second is, obviously, there will be a large impact on the day-to-day operations of your center. When you can no longer see if there are 100 people on the phone, when you can't walk around the center to talk directly with agents, then you have to think about how would we better manage the overall operation of our center. And the third stream that we'll cover on very later in the presentation is the technology stream. With technology today, we optimize, we look to bring not only enabling technologies that would allow your agents and your teams to work in a distributed fashion, COVID safe, but also to allow your customers to be able to leverage the technology that you have in place to deliver their own forms of customer service. I'm going to talk a little bit about automation as we go through this process. Pete, next slide, please. So I mentioned this transition that we've seen over the last 3 decades, certainly the transition that I've seen over the last 3 decades. But I think what's important is, as we think about the change, each step of the way over the last 3 decades, first of all, with the very first wave of the contact center as an opportunity to provide some levels of optimization and efficiency within your business, all the way through to and massive centralization, through to trends that allowed contact centers to become distributed across multiple sites and multiple countries, multiple geographies, multiple languages, to today where we're faced with a situation that is requiring an immediate change. I think the first thing to do is to start by building trust in your organization. What you may be feeling is a little bit of uncertainty, and that uncertainty may mean that you can question, or you'll start to question yourself and are we doing the right thing? Can I manage in this environment? You might find yourself becoming, as a leader in the contact center space, being challenged. How will I manage my business? How can I make sure that my average handle time doesn't get affected by my distributed work team and workforce today? Will customer satisfaction be as good as it was in my center? maybe there are opportunities also to leverage here to improve. Can I maintain my efficiency? Will I have fewer contacts, or will I be able to gain insights from each individual moment that I spend with a customer? And will I be able to report? Will I be able to know which agents are handling the right, providing the right information first time? And how many times does a customer have to call to get an answer that they like? Now, clearly, what we've done over the last 3 decades is build an infrastructure and a technology that allows us to measure all of these things. And the good news for you is today, that technology, that transition to the cloud that started to happen a decade ago, is now picking up to the pace and the maturity, so you can fully be confident in deploying everything in the cloud, so that you can also manage your contact center in a virtual contact center environment. So it doesn't matter whether your agent is sat in the next cube to you, the next cubicle to you, or is sat in the next city to you, or is sat working in the coffee shop away from you. In practice, how fast, how good, how efficient, and how effective are all measurable today, wherever your agent workforce and population is. Pete, next slide, please. So as I said, let's imagine an environment where you start to build the trust in yourself. What you want to be able to do is extend that trust out to your team. Let's think about an environment where knowing that I can measure and I can monitor, why don't we start to make available some of that information to our distributed team members? Let's really think about not only the teams and the traditional tool sets that we had, for example, wall boards on large screen displays in our center, but why not put that right inside of the agent desktop? Let's enable the agents to operate in the same way that they have always operated. I know many of you spend a lot of time training your agents to keep an eye on the queue statistics and the average handle times and the call waiting, to be able to react by themselves. And what we're asking, I think, or what this current COVID situation is asking, is that you go one step further. Let's enable your agents to realize that they can work remotely and be part of a valuable member of your team. One of the things that we have seen as we've gone through this process is it's important to touch base with your agents through different real-time chat systems, to check in with your agents every few hours, maybe just a quick 10 or 20-second interaction, a text message, something like that, that allows your agent to feel that they can engage with you and that they're not alone. The worst part about working from home is the isolation. The best part about working from home is that I'm sat here in my office in California in my PJs because it's after midnight. Your agents may also be able to work from home, and but they want to feel connected with your organization. Pete and I talk almost every day, even though we're separated by 9 time zones. Why not make that available for agents in your own environment? The other side of it is, is my underlying infrastructure capable of supporting? And so one of the things that we have found is, perhaps sometimes there can be questions about, well, is the IP network good enough? Is the public internet connection fast enough? What happens if I have sound issues or quality? Well, there are now technology solutions that can help you address those specific questions. It means that you can devolve away from your on-premise based equipment. And we've gone through now more than a decade of growth in IP and the rollout of services. In fact, today, I'm speaking to you from my Bluetooth headset through a wireless connection on my laptop, through an internet connection here. And the sound quality is perfect, right? There's no difference. You can't tell that I'm not literally sat in the room next to you. So there are ways in which we think about not only letting yourself pick up momentum, right, and grow, trusting yourself and your gut decisions, but also building trust in your team. And one of the ways to do that we've seen that works really well is to think about how you can build confidence in the teams by having what we call self-steering teams, right? So these teams that are now able to come together to drive overall the kind of management strategies for themselves, let you know what they need from reporting and a monitoring system, whilst giving you the ability to step in, to provide regular check-ins, be a constructive part of that team, and then allow them to get on and manage themselves. Pete, let's go on to the next slide and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit more detail. So clearly, this is a challenge, right? 3 decades ago, when we started in the contact center space, we thought about centralizing everything. We used very often, we would use the stick and not the carrot. Now we're asking you to kind of break away from that stick and carrot a little bit and go away from measuring people using traditional models of control to now allowing people to come to you and be part of an overall online community. I think if 2 decades ago, if we were to say, where do you go for information that you need? Well, certainly 2 decades ago, or 2.5 decades ago in the UK, I would go to the Yellow Pages. If I'm looking for a company, I would have to go to the Yellow Pages. Today, my first stop is Google, and Google helps me find communities that help me and help me address particular questions that I might have. Let's build that same sense of community internally to your organization. And so instead of using a traditional model where we use the stick, let's use the carrot with our employees, and let's allow these teams to be members of the community, and let's allow each member of the community to participate and recognize that they are equally a valuable member. Let's check in with people on a regular basis. One of the greatest challenges was for me when I, back in 2006, I first started working from home and put myself in an environment where my team was also distributed across the world. Now, one of the benefits of doing that was, we could have really creative sessions working across different time zones. One of the disadvantages of that is I couldn't see what my team was doing. So I had to learn a new skill, right, which is hard for me, to be patient with people, to give people time to react. Not always, if I send an email, I get an immediate response, or if I send a chat, I get an immediate response. But to let people respond after they've been able to consider, maybe after they've been able to finish putting their kids to bed and or giving their kids breakfast or lunch. You know, I mean, today in today's COVID environment, right, we're all working from home, including our families, and so it's important for you to allow your employees also the space that they require to get through their daily interactions. So let's accept a little bit that the agent, we want to empower the agent to allow the agent to make great customer service calls on our behalf. But at the same time, we need to allow that agent to operate in an environment which is also strange and transitional for them. And so let's allow the patients, let's give them some time to be able to do that. And if you remember back a few moments ago, I mentioned this concept of the self-steering team. We really sense that in today's environment, the ability to create groups of people dynamically, to have those groups come together for solving a specific problem, and then breaking apart and reconnecting and reconfiguring themselves dynamically. We see this over and over again in nature. It's human nature, in fact, to be able to come together and collaborate when we need it, and then to break apart when we don't need it. So let's allow that to happen. And there are tools and skills that we as managers need to deploy to allow our teams to be able to do that. Next slide, Pete. So let's talk a little bit about agent engagement, right? One of the challenges, as you see in the nice graphic here, you know, we were used to, right, getting out of bed in the morning and going through the phases of our rituals and our routines to getting out of the door. Well, today, it doesn't happen. right? So let's create that same environment, but in a virtual place. So let's allow our colleagues and our teams to work, to go to work, but at home. And the way we think about that, certainly from a QuandaGo perspective, and as we've provided services and guidance to our customers through this time, one of the things that we've seen, tools like Slack, Microsoft Teams, and others are really helpful at being able to create an online environment, right, where you can create a place for everybody to come together. Let's create a landing page where it becomes the new water cooler, right? People can all go to and get news alerts and updates about your business on a regular basis. You know, we have people in marketing that are great at communicating and providing out that feedback. Let's give them the access to that. We also have the desire to communicate with each other. So let's allow this kind of single sign-on to multiple applications, creation of a community, and then also the development of planning tools, right? So we can share, and you know, many of my friends and myself, we connect using Zoom, right? In the early days of COVID, where we would get together, or we would drink a beer together, but we would all be distant, right? We would all be virtual. The same is true. From a contact center perspective, from an agent perspective, you know, let's create the water cooler, but let's put it up online, and let's enable our groups to come together, to communicate with each other, to learn from one another about what's working, and then to be able to go back to their desks, reconnect to their customers, and provide great customer service. Next slide. Thanks, Pete. So a little bit about the tools and the technology. I think if we think about what we've done over the last decade is build out software as a service. It's here to stay. The IP revolution has happened. It started in the mid-90s. It's grown and picked up pace through the early 2000s. New standards came in, and now we don't think about it because it's here to stay, right? It's just there. It's a part of our fabric and our DNA. One of the things that we know about people that work from home is they already have devices at home. So this concept of having needing to provide equipment and so on to people at home, well, most people, right, many people already have. So for those that do, let's think about the policies that we need. Maybe we need some additional security policies. Maybe we need some connectivity policies and so on that allows our work at home agents to use their own device, right? BYOD, bring your own device. As I already mentioned, you know, with my device, my internet connection, and a headset, I can be working from anywhere. The other sides are, you know, we think about new tools that will enable us to deliver better customer service in this highly distributed and decentralized environment. So looking at employee engagements, you know, one of the great things is we partner a lot with a lot of specialist companies that will develop specific functions for example, in employee engagement or collaboration, things like tools like Teams and Slack. One of the things that we've also seen is the need to create knowledge in an accessible format. Really what this does is it means that you can share information. So leveraging things like Slack, where you have different channels or different places where you can post questions. And as managers and as leaders, we might not respond to every question, but we might summarize on a daily basis, you know, the top 2 or 3 questions that came in, and leave that as a part of the online community for the next day, right? As our agents come back the next day, we want to provide them the knowledge and insights that we have as managers, and you know, provide them that extra level of comfort that knows that we're grateful for the work that they're doing. And here are some ways that you can learn from my knowledge as a manager, as a leader, to help you. You know, we saw in the contact center the evolution from the stick to the carrot, as we say in English, but from gamification is really going one step beyond. So it's really the end goal of performance and knowledge sharing, right? So not only let's deliver great service, but let's also leverage that into sharing with our partners and our peers what we need, the information we need in order to be able to deliver. Next slide, Pete. One thing I would just add, just on that slide, was the ability for us, and you know, back in the in my very first contact center experience, every agent went through a 2-month training program. Now that may appear to be extreme, right? But you can't do that today. You couldn't even do a 2-week training program. Today, everything you're going to be doing, you're going to be doing online, and so we have to start to leverage e-learning. If we don't leverage e-learning, then we're actually not going to be able to train and scale up our agents. So the last piece I want to talk to you about is the opportunity for automation. We talked a little bit about how we trust our employees and how we have to manage our teams and manage the operations. In order to be able to do that at scale, we need to know what's happening. And we should be able to leverage today some of the analytics that we are able to bring from a cloud-based solution and deploy those analytics across not only the interactions, but also the business processes and identify and use those analytics to identify which of those processes and interactions take the time. And the reason that this is important is because sometimes we have to do more and get through more interactions and resolve issues. You know, one of our most interesting opportunities is how, if we have an automated process, how can we take the information from that automated process and provide it to the customer through a chat session, which provides enough confidence that they don't have to call into the contact center. Right, so we can start to automate some of our business processes to provide not only the basic data, not only the information that answers the customer question, but also provides that confidence in a way that the customer feels satisfied with the response, feels happy that you are providing them a great service, and has actually been able to self-serve. It's been efficient and timely for them. Now, it's not always possible to do all of the automation, and this is really where conversational analytics kick in. We see conversational analytics as being able to do 2 things. Again, I will tell you, in the early 90s, we used to record onto tape. You know, banks of tape machines recording agents at 32 channels per tape, and you would have banks of these recorders. At any moment, I could walk up and I could press a button and I could listen to the conversation that was happening on that particular track. Today, we have the same ability to be able to do those recordings on a massive scale, where all of those recordings are stored forever in the cloud. But we also used to have supervisors that would go and listen, spot check, right? So with a supervisor, you might listen to 1 in 100 calls, or you might focus on one agent for on a weekly basis that's suffering with some performance, and listen to the majority of their calls to provide some feedback. We thought of this as quality management. The challenge with that is, how do you scale that? Conversational analytics is an automation tool that allows you to analyze 100% of your recordings. 100% of every call can get analyzed from a quality perspective. Did Pete give the right salutation? Did Pete answer the customer's question the first time? Did Pete ask the customer how they could be helped again if there was anything else that they needed? Did Pete go through the wrap-up process? Those things which are important to you to manage in this new environment where you don't get to spend face time with your agents can now be fully automated, and we can deliver that through conversational analytics. The other piece is compliance, right? So from a compliance perspective, not only is it important to know that the quality of our calls were good, and we have this 100% coverage, but we are compliant, delivering the services that our customers expect. Again, conversational analytics, process automation, and analytics as a whole provide us great opportunities for automation. So the 3 things to bear in mind: for your teams, let's empower your teams. Let's build trust in yourself, first of all. The gut check that you have that thinks, okay, can I do this? Yes, you can. The second is giving that same empowerment, that same empowered feeling to your team. And then once you have done that, let's put some tools in place that help you from an operational perspective, making sure that we can manage our day-to-day operations of the contact center, leveraging the technologies, not being afraid to go out there and do it. And then let's go one step further. Let's start to delight our customers, even though we're operating in a COVID environment, even though we're operating in an environment where all of our agents are now 100% distributed. So I appreciate your time. Thanks very much. And with that, I'm going to hand back to Pete for the next speaker. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Robert. And a reminder to everyone, if you do have any questions for Robert, we'll have some time for that at the end of the session. Let's jump right in to our next speaker. Steffi, as I mentioned, is from VANAD, a contact center BPO here in Europe. And Steffi is gonna tell you a little bit about herself and about her story as they transition to a more remote-based operation. Steffi, take it away.
Yes, thank you. So good morning again from the Netherlands, from Rotterdam, and thank you for your invite. My name is Steffi Brodkorb. I was born in Germany, and I live now for 27 years in the Netherlands. I joined the VANAD group 11 years ago, and VANAD is a customer experience organization with what we call a personal touch. So we started 15 years ago with 26 employees, and now we are almost 1,500. So we support the customer service for more than 70 brands, and we work 24/7 in 8 languages. And QuandaGo is our partner and make it possible that we can work every day and night geographically independent. And on this way, we can think global and act local. So we have a lot of experience with work from home, and I would like to share some experiences in the next slides. So you can move, Pete. Yeah, just 6 months ago was work from home for the most companies and employees a free choice. And in these times of COVID is work from home a necessity. And I believe that we must prepare our employees that work from home is the new way of work, and prepare us at the same time that this is not the last time that we just handle COVID. So, okay, when we all work from home, we must be aware that success depends on your technology and your people management. So we talked about already a bit about technology, but let's focus again on the people part. In the end, we all want happy, satisfied employees and happy customers, of course. And that's why we need the results. And how we reach our results is the balance between motivation, expectation, and communication in all the different layers in your organization. So we can move to the next slide, Pete. And when we look at the employee side, then we actually need, in an ideal world, self-reliant entrepreneurs at home. But we don't live in an ideal world. So we must prepare our employees that we working apart, but still together. And as managers, we do a great job when our employees feel involved, adaptive, and focused. But this is only possible when we as managers are aware of these points, what you can see here in the picture. So our people don't only need the tools to work, but also support and training to become self-reliant. With an IT support backup when they have troubles, for example. And don't forget, every employee has different personal circumstances. So how many people are in the same house or in the same room when your employees are at work from home? And how they feel when they can't make a split anymore between work and private time or space. And all these things can influence the behavior. So we can facilitate more flexibility in the work schedule, for example, with split shifts, but everybody needs structure in his work. And in all that points can be covered by a clear, open, and transparent communication. It's really important. The key to success is to keep in touch and communicate with each other, and then you have different tools for it, of course. So when we go to the next slide, Pete, then we see it on this on the supervisor side. So on the one hand, we need people who are willing to do a great job, and on the other hand, we need supervisors who are willing to manage people to reach results. And how we do this by VANAD Engage and our daily business since 2009 is everybody who works from home must have a safe workspace where they can work and feel like they're in the office. Working from the sofa or the kitchen table should not be a habit. And like Robert mentioned earlier, so we learn our employees, get up, get dressed, and go to your work at home. So we make checklists and pictures from how look a workplace, and depends on the requirements. We support hardware, tools, and access to all the systems they need. With knowing your team, I mean talk with everybody to find out what are the personal circumstances at home are to make the link between every individual and their behavior. And we must make a differentiation to coach and support every single individual at home. And of course, we must reach our targets, and how better the bond is with your team members, how better the results will be. Everybody must have a clear goal. So share the progress of your team daily and weekly in a kickoff, or come together if this is possible and choose the best channel for your communication. So, for example, a video call is much more interactive than an email. And the key is get really in touch. We use digital quality forms and developed a program how to coach on distance. And we use Learning Cloud and build our own distance learning program with VANAD Academy. So we can measure all the results by individual and by team to make progress. And last but not least, but practice what you preach. Be a role model, stick to your plan and your agreements with your employees, and take care of every individual. Keep the faith and learn, score, and repeat. This some experience from our daily business side on VANAD Engage. So thank you, Pete.
Okay, Steffi, thank you very much. We are going to open up for some questions and answers. Again, you can submit those via chat. I'm going to maybe kick things off with a question for you, Steffi. And, when kind of COVID arrived in March, obviously we had to move really quickly. I know here in Paris there was talk of a lockdown on Saturday, and I think that the country completely locked down by Tuesday morning, so it was very abrupt. Can you tell us a little bit about, what were those kind of first steps you took to really make this transition as the lockdown happened?
Yeah, we were well prepared with our work from home proposition, because we started already in 2009 with small teams, and we built it up in the years so that we work just before COVID. We work already with 800 or 900 employees from home. And not only from home, but we call it also the hybrid model. So then the people work 2 or 3 days from the office and the other days from home. And so we are well prepared. So when the lockdown comes and we close our campus in the Netherlands, we make the switch to work from home with the existing experiences in 8 or 9 days. So the only thing what we need, we know how to manage people. We have our digital programs to support our people. We use QuandaGo to measure everything. So from the technical part was everything in place. The only thing, what we need was, I don't know, I think 200 laptops very soon to roll out 400% work from home. But we have really, with our experience, make it like sort of easy to make the transition to work from home with 100%. And still, today I have a meeting this afternoon at the campus, and I think when I see 50 people, it's a lot. So still, everybody is working from home. 1,500 employees, and we are open 24/7. So,
wow.
Yeah,
amazing. We got a question that came in over the chat. So once you got things kind of set up and you were ready to go, did you encounter any challenges right in the beginning? Any surprises once you were set up?
It's a question for me, Pete.
For you, yes.
Yes, yeah. What we see when we started was what I mentioned also in my presentation: the communication. When we started with work from home, for us was a normal way to communicate by email. But when you make the transition from the office to home, and you send for everything an email, nobody will read it anymore. So we go back, and then I talk about 6 or 7 years ago, then we stopped with email. We call our employees at home, and we make like a matrix how to communicate with each other. Which channel I use for which communication. So we use a lot of WhatsApp for quick questions to help each other. We built up communities with an online tool called Yammer or WhatsApp groups. But we saw when you not able anymore to look your team in your eyes, you don't see them anymore, and they stop the communication, you are lost.
Yeah.
So I really, in the beginning, when we started work from home, and it was for a big player, was T-Mobile. And, I was a manager for the work from home team, and you want to do everything good. And then I lost, some people, so they don't communicate anymore. And then I jump in my car, drive over there, and look what happened, and that is really what we learn our people. Be visible also when you are at home. Be visible, communicate, and stay in touch with each other. This is really important.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I've got a couple more questions, in fact, for you, Steffi, if it's okay. We talked a lot about agent engagement. Did any requests, or did you make any changes in the way you engaged with the end customer? And what did that look like after you went to remote agents? Any changes?
Yeah. Not really big changes. And the end customer, you mean the customer where we work for?
The customer of the customer, I guess.
Yeah. For our partnerships, when we look on the side, I'm responsible also for new business. And because we practice work from home for many years, there was really a USP for us for new business. I always talk. We have a lot of customers in Europe, who are scale-ups or startups. They need different languages 24/7, but the volumes are very low. And how you can provide for a high quality customer service is only when you work for example, with shared teams. But then you need the right technology. So it was always in our discussions with upcoming partners, a really good part of our USP is that we work with QuandaGo, because everything you can see it real time, you can measure it, and this was for our partners was great that we have our own technology as QuandaGo, and we feel it also in the customer satisfaction, because we are really our service levels are really high. We can provide different languages. We work geographically independent, and the only thing what a customer wants, if you have troubles, because otherwise he don't call us, that's that he gets somebody on the phone who is well trained and fix the problem. And that was good that everything come together, you know, well-trained people and the right technology.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. We got another question for you on chat. Back to agent engagement, where, you know, you mentioned some of the messaging platforms and groups and things. Were there any other things you did to help maintain kind of social connection between your agents? Did they do things between themselves to stay connected?
Yeah, we figured this out also 7 years ago, when we started with almost 100 employees from home, that we facilitate some days that they come back to our campus to see each other. Because we saw, you know, in the beginning everybody worked from the campus, and then you make the transition to home, and in the beginning was everything great, and you know it was all fine, but you see after 2 or 3 months that people, some people got a certain isolation, you know, and then we said, okay, we will organize or facilitate 3 or 4 times a year comeback day, you know, that we eat together, share stories together, that you can see each other. We invited our partners also on this day, but everything was before COVID. So now we must prepare something else, because everything must be online. So we organize like road shows together with our partners, that people can plug in from home to see each other by video. And we measure also the employee satisfaction every 3 or 4 months. Also with COVID, because when you don't have the chance anymore to come back to the campus, because the campus is closed of COVID, then it's very interesting how they feel at home. So we measured the employee satisfaction 1.5 or 2 months ago, and it was actually pretty high. We see it also in Germany. In the scale from 1 till 10, we have 8.8. It was very high in COVID times, and in Germany. So now the culture is also different in Germany. And the good thing, what our employees said, was the communication, that we have the right technique to share the progress of our teams. We work digital, so everybody sees from each other what the progress is, and the empowerment of our employees, that they can work in split shifts, for example, but really fix things for our customers, because our learning platform. So yeah, we are really involved with the happiness of our employees and our customers. So we measure a lot, and we learn also a lot. So we keep learning, and for now it's the transition to 100% work from home with COVID was good.
Yeah, no, that's really, really impressive. Really. We'll close up with one last question for you as we approach the bottom of the hour here. But obviously, I think we're going to live with COVID for some time, and I expect your operation will continue in this way, perhaps even until next summer. But are you envisioning any of these kind of COVID-related, remote agent-related changes to be more permanent, even after we get through the COVID crisis?
Yeah. We ask our employees also in the customer satisfaction measurement, what if COVID is gone? You want to come back to the campus, you want to stay at home for 100%, or you want a hybrid model? And the most people, and the most, I mean, almost 70% said definitely not come back 100% at the office, but they prefer a hybrid model. So 2 or 3 days a week work from home, and the other weeks at the office.
Yeah, yeah. That's really great. And look, I've been in this industry for 20 years, and that's pretty radical, from going to a very controlled environment, everybody in the same room, to having that kind of flexibility. I think is a real positive evolution for the industry after all this passes. And I think it's just better for agents as well. And I think their kind of quality of work, quality of life. So that's interesting to hear. And, I think companies on a whole seem to be heading in that direction as well with all of their employees. So, well, Steffi, thank you very much. That was really great and insightful information, and it was great to hear the real examples. So we're just about at the bottom of the hour, everyone. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I want to thank Steffi, Robert, and Boggs again, and certainly all of you for your time today and for attending. If you would like to explore this topic further, we're certainly happy to do that along with Tritel. Please get in touch with us. We'll follow up as well with all attendees with more information. So thank you again, and I wish you a good afternoon and good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.